Okay, thank you. I'm excited to be here with all of you. This is a lot of fun today. It's also fun to see that you're getting some rain down in New Mexico. You're like us. I'm in one of those similar dry desert states, and we've had a little bit of rain up here, but not quite as much as you. And I'm excited to share some things with you that'll be helpful. I always encourage people to have their screens on if they can. We're going to have a fairly large group, and a lot will be joining with a recording later. Couple of times I'll ask to have screens on just because of something that we'll be doing. But to start with, would you first please in the chat type in what is your job in as few words as possible? What is your job? So I could have put teacher or principal or whatever, but I'm an educator. That's my job. So here we go. Okay, school counselor, fantastic. So as I see those, I know why I'm so excited to be with you is because you're my people. We're together. In fact, the Jones family, I'll introduce just a little bit. We are an educator family as well. One other thing is we get those in there. Fantastic to see all you wonderful, hardworking folks there. If you are willing, sometime during the session, when you get tired of hearing my voice, it's nice to hear someone else's. So if you'll put in the chat, I can read. Veronica is monitoring that, and what I'll do, I'll get to a slide and say, hey, Veronica, who do we have to read for this one? And then be ready to come off mute and maybe read a slide. There won't be very many folks, and they won't be hard, I promise. It'll be kind of fun to do that, and I think you'll enjoy it as well. We are here today to have some fun with the fish philosophy. This will really help me right here. In the chat, would you also, well, why don't you go down just to your reactions, and any of you who have heard of the fish philosophy in some way, would you give me like a thumbs up in there so I can see what I'm working with? Who knows what about the fish philosophy? Not seeing a lot of thumbs up yet. Okay, so this might be new to some. Exciting. I think you'll find that this applies incredibly well to any of us who serve those in education systems. And from what I could tell, that's kind of who we have today. Quick introduction. This is me, and you can see my titles there. Speaker, consultant, trainer, educator. So for so many years, I did those jobs full-time. When I retired from Nebo School District up here in Spanish Fork, Utah, they asked me to come back and still do training. So I still do quite a bit of training for them, but I'm out and about in many different places. I've been in 30 different states in the country in the last few years. And it was interesting how that changed when the pandemic came. So folks, this is the Jones family. I want to just introduce real quickly to you that this is why this matters to me. The fish practices make such a difference in the way I treat others. And I believe it makes a big difference in the way others feel and move forward. You can see we got some languages going on in the Jones family. We got some English. We speak English, but about half of the people on that screen speak another language. You can probably pick out a few who speak some Spanish. You can see my Korean contingent. I lived a couple of years in Finland when I was younger. I'll share a special Finnish word with you a little bit later. And I've got a grandson over on the left who's in Guatemala right now. He speaks fluent Spanish, but he's learning Quechua, a Mayan language. And then, you know, the pandemic has made it hard to have family pictures. And so we need a new one, but we've added a couple more, maybe another language. This Heavens language is these two jabber and share. But we've got a big clan, a big group going on, and we love the fish philosophy and the fish practices. So I want you to all go back to your childhood. Now, your childhood will likely be different than mine, but I grew up in this idyllic little town here. My dad died when I was just a little kid, and so I spent a lot of time at my uncle's farm. I was looked after by some wonderful male and female role models in my life, but this is kind of the idyllic life the way I remember it. And I remember it as the good old days. So I want you to ponder this little clip from one of my favorite shows.
The weird thing is, now I'm exactly where I want to be. I got my dream job at Cornell, and I'm still just thinking about my old pals. Only now they're the ones I made here. I wish there was a way to know you're in the good old days before you've actually left them. Someone should write a song about that.
So folks, that's kind of why we're here today. Let's figure out what days we're in. And I hope that these are always the good old days, that we always recognize that the days are what we make them. And so there's a few reasons why we're here. One, we have inside of us the morale we need. When you hear about there's low morale, well, the good morale is inside. We want to unlock that motivation and energy that's already in you. We want to have that unleashed, ready to go. Engagement is what this is all about. That's what we do in schools. That's what we do in education and in families and communities and so many other places. So connecting to others will be important for us. Effectiveness is pretty powerful. If you're enjoying what you're doing, you'll be better at it. It's pretty simple science, but it actually is proven science that we can be better if we enjoy what we're doing. And then the idea of teamwork, building trust, by turning focus on others. So we're going to have a starting point. This is our launch point, and it's the idea of what is on your mind. What are your top of mind issues? So Monica's going to put a link in the chat. If you want, you can pull your phone out and you can do a capture from the screen on the QR code that's there, and go ahead and put a couple of words in there. What is it that is on your mind? And we'll get a view of that here in just a second. These are always fun to watch as they build. We have quite a few people here, and our numbers are growing. The bigger the word, the more that is on your mind. So it's kind of fun to see early on that learning is on our minds, but also stress. Somebody's got to get their morning coffee because it's on their mind right there too. Kind of interesting. Mental health is coming up a lot, folks. I want to talk about that. Not just mental health, but also physical health. They're both coming up. We'll address those. We'll give this just about 20 more seconds. Then I'll try to get back to this toward the end. It'll be kind of fun to see where we are. And then I'll also share this with Monica and Veronica. So far, about a third of you have entered something. And look what our center is, folks. So we want to talk about that. And the fish philosophy is well prepared to help us with dealing with mental health, not just with others, but with ourselves also. A couple other things there. We got school, we got communication, happiness. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so 10 more seconds. I'm going to switch out, and this will keep building. You can keep building that in the background, and we'll come back and get to that here in just a bit. So here we are. We got lots on our mind, but mental health is one of those, and that's the big one that came through. And the idea is, wow, this pandemic was hard. It put pressure on us. We were all harmed. Kids were harmed. We were harmed. Our world was harmed. And it's been a challenge to dig out. And the whole idea is that we have within us some ways to do that. The fish philosophy was kind of born when John Christensen, who's a filmmaker, was in Seattle. And John heard about this place called the Pike Place Fish Market. He went and visited it, and he made it into a film. Wrote books. You can see one of the books back behind me. But I had my own experience at the Pike Place Fish Market about 20 years ago. My wife and I were up in Seattle, and we were there for a principals conference. And that day it had snowed, and it kind of pushed our conference back a couple of hours. And the people in the hotel said, you know what you ought to do is go down and check out the Pike Place Fish Market. So we did, and we walked down there. And as we walked past this sign, and as we walked past these beautiful displays, we could hear kind of a commotion in the distance. And as we got closer, we heard people laughing and calling things. And then we saw fish flying through the air as people were playing games and enjoying life. And we met these crazy people that were doing these things with fish, and people were laughing and enjoying each other. And what came to my mind is the same thing that came to John Christensen's mind. It's like, these people have a horrible job. It's cold. They work in ice with fish and they're throwing them around. They work hard all day and they absolutely love what they're doing. What's behind that? And so that's what we're going to discuss today, is this idea of who are you being while you're doing what you're doing. So you look through all those different jobs that you have. You know, we look through primary school counselor, health educator, mental health counselor, nurse assistant, all of those things. When you're doing that, who are you? What are other people seeing? How are you perceived? What's going on there? So today we're going to go fish. And yes, that is the card game of Go Fish that many of you might remember playing as a kid. I remember my mother teaching me that. You can see my grandkids absolutely love it. That's what they ask us, Grandpa, can we play Go Fish when they come? So I'm going to introduce to you the fish philosophy. I'll do it kind of at a 30,000 foot level. And then I'm going to apply it, each of these practices a little bit different level. And then I'll add kind of a little new twist, an application, an idea for you as well. So look at those kids there. They're going to help me do this for you. And we're going to start out. And here are the 4 fish practices. The first one we'll talk about is be there. And then we'll talk about these other 3 in a little different order. We'll end with choose your attitude, which is pretty powerful in today's world. We're going to talk about the power of play. Yes, and the power of play, whether you're in the New Mexico Department of Health or whether you're working in Las Cruces or Portales or wherever that might be. And then we're also going to talk about how to make their day. Who needs to have their day? Who needs someone to make their day? And how do we do that? What are some ideas to do that as well? And we'll work together and we'll actually play on figuring out ways to do that. So we're going to start with the first practice. I want to make sure that I answer some questions here as well. And so if you have questions, you can pop those in the chat. Veronica is capturing those for us. And I'll periodically say, hey, is there a question or something I should get to? And at the end, I'll leave a few minutes for some question answer as well. So here's our first practice. And we call it a practice because this is something that you do get better with as you practice. To be there. And who's our first reader, Veronica? Do we have one?
No readers as of yet. So if you'd like, I will read this.
Will you please?
Be physically and emotionally present for people, especially when they need you. It's a powerful message of respect that strengthens relationships.
That's what we're about, people. I don't know what any of you are like your first time when you were in a school setting, and then we held different things. So I was as a teacher, and I was told, Jalen, the most important thing you'll do as an educator is to develop relationships. That's the most important thing. So this whole idea about not smiling till Thanksgiving, or making sure that you pound things home and work hard on rules, all that, it's fine to work on rules, all of those things, but the most important thing you do is develop relationships, and to be there is part of that. So in being there, we want to make sure that we are fully present. We want to make sure that we're listening to understand, not just to reply. The great Stephen Covey said, seek first to understand, then to be understood. So he recognized that listening is more important than talking. And then taking your actions based upon that awareness. So I want to do a little test. A lot of you have your screens on, which I appreciate. Let's do this together. It's interesting that as human beings, we know when someone is not there for us. We can tell, we know what it looks like, but we're not necessarily sure when we look that way. So just for fun, would you all of you with your screens on, get close to your screen and show me what it looks like when you are not there. Okay. If this is the not be there look, would you all do whatever it is you do that if you're not there? Okay, that's well done, Maureen. Kendra, super. Oh, there we go, Ronald. You picked it up. That's one that I see quite often. quite a few at John. Thank you. Okay, folks, fantastic. Now let's just switch that. Now I want you to get in your mind that you have learned the be there principle, and now you are here for me. You are here, excited to hear what someone else has. There we go. Thanks. It's Clara. Yes. Oh, Danessa. Thank you. Gloria. There we go. We know what it looks like. We know what it sounds like. And unfortunately, we don't always do it. And sometimes with students who we might deal with, it's interesting. I've sometimes talked with my grandkids and said, hey, when I'm talking and you're looking down at your phone, I just had this little story going on in my mind that maybe you're not listening to me. And they'll say, oh, I'm listening, Grandpa. I really am. I'll say, well, you kind of listen with your eyes and you kind of listen with your heart, and being there makes a difference. We're going to talk about it a little bit. I want to introduce you to Owen. I told you my grandkids would help me with sharing this. This is Owen. This was his first day of preschool. You can see the picture on the, but what Owen is probably the most curious child in the world. And Owen has been the beneficiary of parents who listen to him. And because he has parents who listen to him, you can tell because he's always asking questions. He's incredibly curious. Well, Owen, about a year before this 7-second video happened that I'm going to show you, about a year before this, his grandfather died. His great grandfather, my wife's dad, had passed away. And Owen went to the funeral. He saw his grandpa in the casket. He saw all these people there, and he knew that Grandpa Doggies is what he called him because they had the cute little dogs. Grandpa Doggies has died, and he's gone. Well, months later, my mother-in-law remarried, and she said, Galen, I want my new husband to meet all of the kids and the grandkids. And so she brought her new husband to Owen's house. Listen closely for the question that Owen asks.
Oh, love you guys. Okay. Grandpa, why are you live? Why am I live?
Okay, did you all catch the question that Owen asked? He's like, I've seen Grandpa in a casket, and here you are alive. Grandpa, why are you alive? But because Owen feels so open, so enabled to ask questions, he can be curious and he can ask. Now, what's funny about that is look how embarrassed my mother-in-law is. She's listening to that, and we all laughed. Her new husband, he was awesome about it. But this little Owen, he will always be asking a question. And here's my encouragement to all of you. Are you open enough with everyone that they feel safe to ask you a question? Do they have that emotional safety in order to do that? That's part of what being there does. It opens up that conduit that people can share with us. One of my favorite writers in the newspaper, I've transitioned to reading my newspaper online, but Harvey Mackay, whenever he writes an article, I listen to it, I read it, and he says, listen close. He says that listening is in danger of becoming a lost art. Okay, so let's talk about that. Harvey says that when I ask you to listen to me and you start giving advice, you have not done what I asked. Now that's pretty important because often when we try to work with those our peers and those that we serve, we want to give advice right off because, hey, we've been around, we know the answers, we know how that goes. If you're as old as I am, you know all kinds of things to tell them. But listening should come first. Next, when I ask you to listen to me and you begin to tell me why I shouldn't feel that way, you're trampling on my feelings. Now, emotional health was one of our big things. Mental health, emotional health. This is one of the number one findings from Mark Brackett to all kinds of other researchers that I have a hard time pulling out of my head right now, but they're saying we need students to be able to express themselves. We as adults need to be able to express ourselves. We need to be able to talk about things in order for us to strengthen that health, that mental, emotional health. Social emotional learning has become the number one topic everywhere I go in the United States. And why? Is because not everyone feels listened to. And we can use the technology to do it, but when you are face to face with someone, that's when it can really make a difference. And then this one kind of wraps it up. When I ask you to listen to me and you have to do something to solve my problems, you failed me. Now, what I'm not saying is that we're not going to help people solve their problems. What I am saying is we need to listen first. We need to help them with solving their problem. When someone gives ideas to solve their own problem, they're the closest to the situation, and then they're more motivated to implement what it takes to make that happen. So to kind of emphasize this concept of how it works, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt way back many years ago, and this was probably before he was confined to a wheelchair. He tried an experiment. He hated long reception lines, shaking hands with all these people, and he decided to try something. So every person that came along, he would shake their hand and say, "I killed your grandmother last night." And he went through like 2 hours of the reception, and finally a young man came up and he said, "Oh, President, I'm sure she deserved it." and so, folks, we need to listen. We need to make sure that we know what is going on, and we're going to give you a little idea, see if you can jump in for this. So I'm going to put a link here, and then I'm going to pull it up on my screen and explain what we're going to do. But we're going to see if we can figure out ways to be there at home, at work, and in our community. So there's the link. Go ahead and click that link, and in a minute you'll see what that link will lead us to, and I'll show you on the screen how that works as well. Okay, let's see. I need to share it this way. Okay, so on your screen, hopefully you see this little Google sheet. If you were born between January and April, I'm going to ask that you go over to the left and that you pick a line there and you type in an idea you have of how you can be there at work based upon what we talked about. Those born May to August, if you'll type something in where it says, how can I be there at home? And those born September, December, type something, I can be there in my community. Now, we've got 72 people, so that'll divide up at in pretty close to numbers there. So think about the day of the month you were born, and then which month you're born, and go ahead and start. I'm going to show you an example. How can I be there in my community? I can attend meetings for new changes. We just have a new library going on right now in our community, and so I went to some meetings. I got a chance to have some input on how I could be there to do that. So go ahead, folks. Let's see if we can capture that. Let's take about 3 or 4 minutes.
Jalen?
Yes.
Getting some comments in the chat that the file is a view-only file.
Uh-oh. Okay. Let me see if I can fix that. Huh. I'm going to make that editor. Okay. See if that makes a difference, folks. Will somebody try?
Folks might have to
I might have to redo
refresh
it.
the link.
Okay, let's refresh the link. Oh, it's working now. There we go. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for having the attitude of asking and moving forward. Okay, now we're getting folks. Perfect. All right, and this will build out, and all of these things we build today, I'll make sure to share with Monica and Veronica. Okay, as these are building, I'm just going to kind of pick out a few, and you have access to this link, folks, so you can see this get built as people go on, and we've got over 70 people building on the links. That's pretty neat. Open a door for someone. Isn't that just kind of a cool thing? It's so interesting for me wherever I am. If I open a door, if I'm looking out for someone else, that helps. And number 14 over there, to smile. My grandkids all started school yesterday, and I have one grandchild who I was really worried about. He's been a bit down. Things have been tough for him, and he's going to high school for the first time. And I told him, I said, you know, the number one thing you can do is smile, and make eye contact was probably the second one. So good job. Okay. Those who are looking at the home part, disconnect fully from work, at least as much as you can. We know things happen, but this whole idea that if we can have a family sit down meal and be together, that really helps. Volunteering over on the community, being positive about the improvements that are happening. I mean, in a community, we could always find something to complain about, but it's nice to be positive. I live in a town where people are pretty positive. It's an amazingly well-run city. And that positivity builds more positivity. fun to see help my elder as I'm getting close to where I'll fit into that, knowing there's people out there that will help me, making connections with those who have disabilities. I saw that popping up. All right, you're doing fantastic, everyone. Let's give it about 30 more seconds. I think you're understanding be there. We're going to kind of take that a little bit more as we see how it goes. Less screen time for all of us. That's probably a great idea. Just kind of scanning down. Okay, so we're down as far as 16. Okay. We've got great ones in every one of those. So that's something to keep. You've all got that link. You can keep that link. We had more than 37 pop things in, some popped in more than others. And so I'm going to close that one down, but please feel free to keep adding ideas in. I'm always looking for ideas, so I appreciate always capturing a few more. This idea of helping a neighbor, you know what, I can almost guarantee if you live very close to other people, there's a neighbor who needs you, to be there for them. So nice job, everyone. That was kind of fun to see that play out and to recognize. That's the first practice. So let me just take a minute or two and see if anyone wants to either come off mute and ask a question or type in the chat a question you might have about be there. Anybody have something? There's a fantastic quote, if I can pull it up here, Ram Dass, who said, be here now. And that's what we're after for that one. Okay. All right, I didn't see other questions. We're going to dive in. We got the first practice behind us. Let's add another one. This one is play. Now, a lot of people say, well, I'm at work, I can't play. And I would say, if you can't play at work, then you've got a horrible job. Let's find a way that we can play no matter what our job is. And if you watch people who really enjoy life and are successful, they've figured out this concept. So here we go. Veronica or Monica, or if we've got anybody else that's agreed, can we have a slide read, please?
Yes, we have Maureen, if you want to unmute and read the slide.
Thanks, Maureen.
You're welcome. Hi, play is a state of mind that you can apply to any task. It's the spirit that fuels creativity, as in, let's play with that idea. You do your best work when you are having fun doing it.
There we go. Thank you, Maureen. And that is absolutely the truth. In fact, I don't know how many of you remember Jacques Cousteau. I used to always remember watching. He had this submarine. He was a deep sea diver. He did all of this research, but he said, I was playing when I invented the aqua lung. I think play is the most serious thing in the world. Isn't that kind of an odd way to say that? But how important is play? So I want to ask you this question. This is kind of just this rhetorical question. When did we forget how to play? Because there's a time in our life when we're good at it. And I've noticed that the time as I've been able to watch my own children grow up and now seeing grandchildren, I'm watching that children are able to figure play out. They're not as inhibited by our world. That's part of what's going on. I got 3 short little videos to just show you what play's like. These are 2 of my grandkids who are at our house quite often. My wife will tend. Their parents are teachers and counselors, and so they have their kids at our home. And I had been on the road a lot. I'd traveled a lot, and they'd asked me about it. I told them about hotels. So they took what they saw in the house, and this is how they were able to play. Hey, Ryder, what game are you playing?
Hotel.
And what do you have on that paper? Numbers? Okay, show me where you put the numbers, you guys.
Okay.
Show me.
We put them right up here. 3, 1.
So that's room number 3. Okay.
And I know 11.
And
Yeah,
11.
3.
And then what's my bedroom door?
Oh,
Oh, I'm staying in room 2. Okay. So as you watch this, would you also enter in the chat? Okay. I appreciate Lottie putting in there. Yeah, I continue to play. Enter in the chat what forms of play do you see? So right there, for example, imagination, okay? But what else? What other things do you see? So another quick little transformation they made into our home.
Okay, so what am I doing with these dollars up here you've got?
Giving us them.
Oh, so I can rent a hotel room?
Yeah.
Okay, I think I want room 22. Did you say that was the bedroom that I like?
Yeah.
Could I have that for 2 nights?
6 nights.
6 nights? Okay, do I need to give you all these dollars to make it work?
No, just 2.
Just 2?
Just 1.
Okay, so first of all, let me ask you, what's your name?
Wobble.
And what's your name?
Sailor.
Okay, and you're helping out at the front of the hotel desk? What are all these things over here, this pile over here for?
Your toys.
Oh,
Your toys.
do we get to have toys at the hotel? Okay, does that cost more dollars?
Yes.
Okay, here's some more dollars so I can have some toys. Thanks, you guys. See ya.
See ya. Bye.
You know, I wish they were in charge of the hotels I go to, because I would like some toys. But you guys are picking out some things here. Pretending, creativity, excitement, cooperation. Now that's what was really important about this, because these two can have some conflicts, but cooperating and making it fun to work and having improv and reasoning. Now, one of the powerful things going on here was they also got to make up their own names. Okay, they changed their names. I don't know if you picked that up. And they were able to also transform what they had around them. So one more quick one, it's like 20 seconds. This one kind of gave me a new insight as to how the child brain thinks.
So tell me about these dollars. Which ones are which?
This one's 10s. Yeah. These are 6s, 9s, 16s, and 4s.
Okay, well, that's a lot of dollars sitting there.
And
Okay.
those are the toys right there.
Okay, thanks you guys.
But you guys all want some of those 16s, don't you? Those $16 that are going on. So how fun for them to recognize that they can transform anything. So when we are at work, in our community, our home, wherever, we can have play, but there are a couple of things we need. Play encourages creativity through several things, but I wanted you to realize also that we need to know boundaries when we play, and that's what makes playing work. It would not be fun to play a football, soccer game, or chess or anything else if we did not have some boundaries, some rules that we all agree on, but then we can be as creative as possible through those boundaries. So the idea is to encourage play. One of my favorite words, every week I think of my week coming up and I want to be curious. I want to have curiosity, and curiosity really helps create play. Another one is that freedom to innovate. Here at our home, I mean, we've learned, I got to tell you, I'm a little embarrassed, but our kids younger, we probably would have put a little more restrictions, but these grandkids, I mean, they get to do, as long as they're not, trashing the house, we let them do all kinds of things. We do make them clean up, but they feel free to be able to play what they want. The freedom to be you. Do you have that in your work? Are you allowing others to have that in their work? And how about this trust in this playing field? We have trust with others, we allow that. And our environment. How's our environment set up? Is it dry? Is it not very exciting? Or do we have colorful, invigorating kinds of things around us? So I want to end the chat, and feel free if folks want to come off mute as well, but I want to talk about how can we create more play with each other or with those we serve. So let's capture some ideas here. Laughter is perfect, Raina. So think about, to have laughter, what do we need? Sometimes it's jokes, sometimes it's just being lighter, the way we approach things. Humor, laughter, fantastic. Encourage participation. So important that people feel like they're included. Sometimes that really outgoing person might demand a lot of attention, and we need to make sure that we adjust. Asking questions, Gil, thank you. And hopefully we know when we ask questions that we make those open-ended, that we get people to talk. Environments, thanks, Rachel. A safe place, got to be safe. I hope you can see those two little kids there were pretty safe. Yeah, Kendra, I like that idea. Let them see you be silly. If they think that we're always stern all the time, that makes such a difference. You can laugh at your mistakes. We definitely make them. It was so funny yesterday, little Avery, who was in the video there, she was with me. And as I was backing out of my garage, my truck made this beep. It always thinks that I'm going to break the mirror off or something. And I explained to her that's what the truck was doing. And she said, my other grandpa backed out and tore his mirror off his garage. And I thought, oh man, would John Wilson be embarrassed if he knew that I knew he had done that? You know, but it was funny. I said, oh, that's fine. You tell your grandpa John, that's not a problem. Yeah, used to hide behind a pole when the colleagues wouldn't walk and they'd say, where's Lonnie? Okay, there we go. That's the kind of thing we want. We're gonna take this, folks, to another level. Would you just in the chat say yes or no? Please, everybody type in yes or no. Have you seen the movie King Richard? Just yes or no. That's the only question to start. Quite a few yeses. All right. So, oh, and a lot of no's. Excellent. So I'll be able to tell you just a little bit. So as I watch this movie, thank you. As I watch this movie, I was watching for how this dad was able to get these girls to do such incredible hard work for years and years and years. Now, he had 5 children, but these are the 2 you see on the screen who became famous tennis players, the Williams sisters, Serena and Venus. What was interesting for me is that everything they did, every practice, every hard work was a game. There was a little contest, a little, he would push things. He would add a little laughter and a lightness to it. And there were times in the movie where they were playing in the rain, and times in the movie where they're doing all kinds of other things. And he had neighbors who were turning him into child protective services because he's working these girls so hard. But the faces you see on these 2 in that card are the faces you have to have at that age working that hard, or you'll never have the incredible change the world tennis players that we had. So I really believe that example of what play can do helps. And then I got kind of another example. It's the idea of teamwork. If we can add teamwork to what we do, others helping together. Now today we've got a team. I've got Monica, Veronica, Marie. We're all working together as a team to provide you an experience. And whenever we can look at work and say, I could do this by myself, well, that's boring and hard. Who can I include? Who can I help to do whatever it is they need to do? So this picture shows you, feel close, this is what my neighbors call my biker gang. I've got 3 electric bikes, and then my grandkids love riding them so much that their parents got them electric bikes for Christmas. And so we're riding our electric bikes a lot. Well, we were riding them one day in the spring, and there was a problem. We came to a section of the trail where we ride, and it's next to an access road by a little reservoir. The access road is gravel, and as the people, the maintenance workers driving along the access road, as they were doing that, they had thrown gravel out onto our trail, and the trail was covered with this fine gravel, and it was shaking us. We went by, and one of my grandkids says, Grandpa, this is annoying. And I said, well, God, it is. What could we do about it? And we stopped and we talked, and they said, could we come back and clean it up? And so we did. So we got blowers, we got brooms, we got scrapers, and we went back up to that trail. You can see the access road. There's a little reservoir just to the right there. And this is about a 1/4 of a mile section of trail. We went over it 3 or 4 times, but I wanted you to see what it looked like when they figured out this Canadian goose formation. Go! Here is our Canadian geese V formation, working really hard. Now it's so interesting because just about a week ago, I was up there with Brighton and Miles, not Delay in the front, but the 2 boys that are in the front. And as we're riding along, this is, Grandpa, it's still clear of gravel. Isn't that kind of neat? It's almost like people are being more careful once we got it cleaned up. And of course, we went back to my house, and what did we do? We had pizza. We had a soccer celebration. And you know what was so interesting? When they were done, they said, Grandpa, thanks for taking us to clean the trail. It wasn't Grandpa, thanks for the pizza. Grandpa, thanks for the soccer. There's Grandpa, thanks for helping us, letting us go clean the trail. So here's my encouragement to you. Can we think of ways that we can team together to solve these problems? We've got this mental health challenge. We've got emotional situations going on. Can we team together with those? So let me go back here. So questions, comments, and thanks for those who put ideas here in the chat. Any other ideas about play that maybe came as we watched that teamwork? So what about, let's ask this about teamwork. What are ways we can use teamwork that maybe we haven't thought of before? Does anybody have something they can come off mute and share with us as well?
I think just try new things and ask others what they want to do and get out of your comfort zone.
Wow, that's a great summary, John. Try new things, ask others, and get out of your comfort zone. Thank you very much. Anybody else? Here's my word of advice. Don't take yourself too seriously. Okay.
Just this is Ron, to piggyback off of John, you know, in the school systems, you know, we're coming from a situation where everybody had the mask on and we're not really socializing. But just encouraging to go out there and introduce yourself and just practice, you know, common civility and just be kind to one another.
Thanks, Ron. You know, I had teachers who told me at the end of that 1 year, you know, depending on where you were, depending on how much mask you had, but they said they got to the end of the year and they finally got to see what their students looked like. Yeah, and that was such an insight for them that they hadn't seen smiles all year long. I think that was probably the most devastating part of the pandemic is not having that interaction that comes from the glow that comes from a face. So thank you. Great comments, folks. So here's my plan. I want to go just a few more minutes, then I'm going to have a short break. So at the top of the hour, we're going to have about a 5-minute break. We've got 2 more practices to talk about, and then we'll have a little bit of question answer toward the end. So that's kind of where that is. I always like to know ahead of time when that's coming. So this one, I have favorites of everything I do in life, and I love every one of the fish practices. This one has had an incredible effect in my life in the last year. In fact, I believe this practice has pretty much enhanced my marriage and my family relationships. This is where I kind of went to. This was my go-to during the challenges of the pandemic, and especially during the challenges of this past year. Just to tell you part of the backstory, my wife, a little over a year ago, had some surgery on her foot, and then she developed, all you health professional types might know what this is, she developed a horrible syndrome called complex regional pain syndrome. All of a sudden in her foot became swollen, her foot became incredibly painful, and 9 or 10 on the pain scale. But the doctors were saying nothing's wrong with your foot. It was a connection. It's a mental health thing, a connection between whether there's something wrong or not. And it completely debilitated her. She was for months not able to get out of the house except to see doctors, and it was incredibly painful. And we did all kinds of things to deal with it. So that's the backstory. And this is the practice that made such a difference. Do we have another reader?
Yes, we do. John Kutniak.
That was good. Kutnak. I've got one of those names. Find ways to make people feel special, letting and let them know how much you value and appreciate them. Celebrate others.
Thanks, John. And that's where we're going with make their day. We'll talk about it for just a few more minutes here, and then we'll have a break kind of partway through. So make their day has some powerful concepts behind it. First is that idea that we value and recognize others. There are those around us who really know how to hide. They know how to stay out of the limelight. They know how to not make eye contact and how to blend in with the background. We need to look for those people. When we get together and we're doing play things with others, let's identify who that is, who we might need to make their day. Being genuinely selfless. The research is showing that when we focus on others, we become more happy. And part of my wife getting better, she's much better, not 100%, but she's much better. Part of that was her finding out just a few months ago that her sister needed her. Her sister is an amputee who has been an RN who has had a long career and whose health started to decline, who is now in hospice. And as my wife started to help my sister-in-law, she started to find some healing. Now, being aware of who needs their day made and how they like to have it made, that's the difference. So all of you think about it, how it is you'd like to have your day made, because sometimes people try to make your day, but they don't know you well enough. Okay. They don't know how powerful that can be. So as you think about it, there might be somebody who maybe you want to go buy them a Coke and drop it by and they say, I only drink water. Well, we got to figure out ahead of time what it is that's going to make their day. All right. So selflessly delighting and valuing others. This is the concept. So here we are, part of my biker gang. Can anybody in the chat type in what you think they are doing? What are these boys doing? Okay, we got catching a snake, insects. Okay, moving frogs. Okay, you know, that's great guesses there. It's interesting. Ah, there we go. And picked it up, scraping poop off the trail. So here we have this beautiful river trail. There's 9 miles of trail. We ride it both ways. 18 miles we ride when we go. And there's some people who don't follow the rules. Well, here's what we've decided to do. And my grandchildren have learned that this is big and important to me. When we see any kind of animal poop or whatever on the trail, we stop, we get a stick, we scrape it off. And we do it whether anybody's there or not. People don't need to know that we're doing it. It's just one of those things that we do. And they're pretty proud of their trail. When we ride on it, as you can see, they've cleaned it. They've done all kinds of things on the trail. The point is they're helping others. And we are there all year long. You know, unless it's dangerous to be on the surface that we're on, we go no matter what the temperature is, and we really have a lot of fun. And it's kind of neat because my older grandkids still like to be with their grandpa. So there's a book I'm going to tell you about. It's a short book, a children's book. It's called The Dog Poop Initiative, a true story by Kirk Weisler. Kirk is pretty amazing in the story, but he just talks about the whole idea of initiative, of somebody stepping up and take care of something that needs to be done. So this might be something unpleasant that we're talking about on the trail, dog poop, but what are the things in a school? What are the things in an office? What are the things in your various departments that people could step up and do? It was interesting. I was 16 years as an elementary school principal, and I found something quite fun about that. I walked the halls a lot. Anytime I saw any kind of a piece of paper or something in the hallway, I always stopped and picked it up. And what I found is everyone noticed that, and they started doing the same thing. So the schools where I served as a principal, they looked awesome. Our custodians loved us because we took care of a lot of issues within the classroom. As a teacher, we did the same thing. We cleaned up at the end of the day, and it was always about, hey, let's do this as a nice thing. Let's make Mr. Couchus's day, okay, that kind of a thing. And it was one of those powerful concepts. No act of kindness, no matter how small, is ever wasted. And I think it's pretty powerful. Yeah, rain is affecting, part of that. Yeah, that can kind of do that too. Okay, so here's my personal example. I want to apply it another level. I explained my wife and her situation, and that had gone on for a few months. She had some mental health challenges. She was kind of depressed. I was really, really scared about her. She would barely crawl out of bed and maybe get herself to the shower some days, and she'd eat maybe a piece of toast. She was on crutches, and I couldn't get her to go anywhere. And one day, Addie, our granddaughter, you can see her there in blue, she called us. She said, hey, Grandpa, I decided to run country. Now, I don't know how many of you know about cross country. This is junior high cross country, and she had never run it before. She says, I decided I'm going to run. I have a friend who's running. She taught me into it, and it's the district meet tomorrow, but don't feel like you have to come. So I went to my wife. I said, Addie's running tomorrow. Here's the thing. I know that route that they run. There's a place where I could park the car where you could see Addie run by 3 times. I will get you in the car. we'll have the heat on and we'll have a blanket. See, she couldn't even cover her foot. She couldn't touch it with a sock. She couldn't touch it with a blanket, and it got cold. And it was kind of a cold fall day. I said, I'll park there. I've got binoculars. You can watch her. It'll take 15 minutes. Cross country doesn't take long. It'll give you a chance to see Addie. Well, we got there. We got all settled, and I could see through binoculars across the field. It's like, wow, there's 7 junior high schools. 90 girls were lined up to run. And as they took off running, we heard the gun, and we saw as they came around the first corner by our car, I was standing out there. Addie was a very distant second. There was a girl way ahead of her, but she was second out of all these girls. And as she ran by, I said, Addie, Grandma's in the car cheering for you. I saw a transformation on Addie's face. Her grandma hadn't been out of the house for months. She had missed all of her summer soccer. She had missed all kinds of things, and she's usually always there. And I saw this look. Well, the second time she came by, this is what we saw. There she goes. Come on, Kayla. So when you hear that, come on, Kayla, well, that's the girl who's in first. And one of the coaches for her was yelling at her because Addie was catching up. And as they came around the third time, I kind of got surprised because this is what I saw.
This is Addie. I think she's going to win. She's got it. She's in first place. Way to go, Addie.
Now, I still have some emotion in my voice because it was such an amazing thing. We did not expect it. When you want to make someone's day, do something they don't expect. And it was such a powerful thing. And this picture is the first smile I saw on my wife Gayleen's face as Addie, the minute Addie was done, I ran over the finish line. She's, where's Grandma? She wanted to talk to her grandma. She ran over to the car, and this is what I saw. Now, what's fun about this is that it didn't only just make Addie's day, Gayleen's day, it made Addie's day. And here's her friend who talked her into running cross country. And it made Addie's day, and it gave her a confidence that was pretty amazing because she thought of her grandma the entire race. Once I said her grandma's there, that changed things. She decided, the same friend started wrestling. Now, folks, I don't know if you know this, but the #1 growing sport in the United States is girls wrestling. And the idea of Addie wrestling, she had never wanted to do it. Her brothers wrestled. Her dad is a wrestling coach. But that day, with her grandma getting that kind of a wonderful experience, her friend asked, and she ended up going into wrestling. I'll show you one more picture, then I want to go to a couple of your comments here. So she and her little brother, who's a wrestling prodigy, they're way into wrestling, and Addie's going to wrestle at the high school this next year as a 9th grader. So Anna, thank you so much. She wanted to input is to handle the teacher shortage, various other programs that provide on-site online learning in schools, and maybe we can increase that. So keep getting the internet. Okay, so it's going out again. I'll keep getting back. All right, so yeah, hopefully you see this is an idea. Can we get people involved as they're excited? The smiles on those two's faces, those who work in schools, that's what you want, right? These two are enjoying life because they are doing things for others, and it's a powerful concept. So as we go to break, I want to show a little video. This is kind of another little twist on the whole idea of make their day. So sometimes we try to make people's day by motivating them, and we motivate them to do things that are challenging. So maybe we try to motivate someone who lacks ability. So after this video, you know what? I'm going to tease you a little bit. We're going to go to break first, and then I'll have you fresh for this video. But when I show you the video, I'm going to ask you to think about when this has happened to you, when you've been motivated and you haven't had the ability. So on the screen, when you come back, as we get going on the break, I'm going to have a timer. The timer's going to be counting down. We'll give you, let's do 6 minutes. And as we time down those 6 minutes, as it gets to 0, there will be music play. And here's our game. Type in the chat either the artist or the music that you hear. And we'll see you back here in 6 minutes. Make sure I got somebody making a comment. Okay, gotcha. So 6 minutes, we'll see y'all back here. I kind of want to just keep playing it for a while, but we got work to do here, folks. So let me get back to where we are. I hope you had a great break. Mario, thank you. I knew there would be somebody who would appreciate my music. You know, what's so interesting is the music from my era comes through. So like I take the 2 grandsons you saw, you can tell I do a lot with them. They call and talk to me on the phone. Guess when they call me? It's when a new Marvel movie comes out. They'll say, hey, Grandpa, there's a new movie coming out. Do you want to take us to the movie? And so like you go see the Love and Thunder music and what's playing? Okay, my music. Okay, Sweet Child of Mine is playing, and like the Iron Man songs and all of that. I mean, it's just fun for me to see that my music really plays out. So I got something special for you. That's why I wanted to wait till after the break and make sure that your brains are sharp and ready to go. So got a little video. The gentleman you see on the screen, his name's Ron McMillan. Ron is one of the authors of Crucial Conversations, Crucial Accountability, Change Anything, really well accomplished man. And this video is his experience, but I want you to listen for the end of this sentence you see on the screen. When you try to motivate someone who lacks ability. Boom. We're going to talk about this. This is a huge takeaway for today and for our way of helping these challenges with mental health and with emotional stability.
In high school and at university, I was a wrestler, or as my mom put it, a wrestler. I know what you're thinking. He doesn't look the type who would enjoy sticking his face in another man's armpit. But it paid my tuition, and I was able to work out all my anxieties and frustration without resorting to cheap alcohol or imported herbs. And anyway, wrestling taught me an important life lesson. As a 10th grader, just learning the sport, I was frightened and excited when Coach McBride announced I would be wrestling varsity in the coming meet. All that week, I prepared with focus and intensity. With the school and my family watching, I desperately wanted to win my first varsity match. It was a long, hard-fought contest between 2 well-matched athletes. Going in the last round, I was behind by 1 point and was on the bottom position. As the ref blew the whistle, my opponent lifted his knee and I saw the perfect opening for a move called the switch. If I could pull it off, I'd be awarded 2 points and I could hold on for the win. I hit the move and my opponent countered by easily muscling me down with his shoulder. I repeated the move several times during the round with the same result. On my final try, I hit the move with all my strength and heart. He flattened me and I lost. Coming off the mat, I was met by the assistant coach, the school French teacher who volunteered to help out. He looked me in the eye, shook his head sadly and said, "You gotta want it, son." I was crushed. I honestly felt I had wanted it with 100% desire. All night long, I tried to figure out what was wrong with my attitude. The next day at practice, Coach McBride complimented me on a fine job. I was surprised, but I lost, I said. He smiled and said, "But you won't next time." He then showed me how to turn my weight to my inside hip when I threw the switch. This little tip would prevent the opponent from pushing me down, and the move would work every time. Now, I know the assistant coach meant well. He reached for the influence tactic that he believed would help me win matches. He tried to motivate me. But the problem was, I didn't lack motivation, I lacked ability. There was an important skill I didn't know. When throwing the switch, shift your weight to the inside hip. New habits almost always require new skills. And the problem is, whether you and I try to change ourselves or change others, we often fail to appreciate what a big role learning new skills plays. You see, when you try to motivate people who lack ability, you don't create change, you create depression. Our bad habits always develop skills that support those habits. So new habits will require new skills, sometimes surprising and counterintuitive skills. If change is taking too much will, then you're probably lacking skill. Take time to do a skill scan, and you'll find change a whole lot easier.
So I want to ask you this. When you try to motivate someone who lacks ability, let's finish that out. Go ahead and type that in. It'd be good for your fingers to type in your concepts there, whether you get it just right or not, the whole concept. What happens when you try to motivate someone who lacks ability? Maureen was paying attention, but feel free, all the rest of you, type that in there. You need to plant this in your head because this is what's behind many of our problems. Yeah, they get discouraged. There's resistance. It causes issues. We often make our problems worse when it comes to this whole idea of helping people with their mental health challenges because we try to push. Yeah, we create discord. I love the way you're talking about this. Confusion falls on deaf ears. Yes. Folks, we need to make sure that we first become a teacher and then become a motivator. Okay. Fantastic. Really well done, folks. I'm glad to see that you picked up on that. And I want you to think about this idea. When did you receive motivation when you actually needed additional training or resources? Think about when that happened to you. And then more importantly, is there someone who you serve who could use you providing more of these kinds of things? Wow. Fantastic job in the chat, everyone. And I really like what you put here, Raina, is that they disconnect. It creates frustration, as Brian's saying. Yeah, we need to make sure we take care of those skill things. Then we can say you can do it. So one example is, I'm not very tall. You can't tell here. Maybe I should tell you I'm tall. I'm 5'9", and I'm not very athletic. If you have a 10-foot basket here and you gave me a basketball, you could cheer me. All 70 of you could cheer me as much as you wanted. And I could not dunk that basketball. I cannot do it. It doesn't make sense to motivate me to do something that I'm not able to do. I'd just be frustrated and question myself. So this idea, think about when it's happened. My good friend Susie talks about that she's been trying to figure out how to do a headstand in her yoga. And she keeps having people say, you can do it, Susie, you can do it. It's like, no, Susie's had to work on it. And she's getting closer and closer, developing the strength and the balance. But this whole idea doesn't work that way. So we're going to do a 5-minute breakout. And the way we're going to do the breakout is Monica's going to put you in groups of about 5. Okay. Now, the second you get in there, you want to take advantage of your time. The second you get in there, decide who was born earliest in the year. That person, you get to be the scribe. Okay. Do that within 30 seconds. And then as you spend your 5 minutes together, gather as many ideas as you can to make their day. Remember, we talked about all kinds of ideas about service and figuring out what people need, all of that kind of stuff. Then when we come back, scribes, be ready to put those in the chat. Remember, this is being recorded for others as well. And this will be helpful for us to capture all of these ideas about how can we make their day. So Monica, let's do it. 5 minutes.
You still want 5 people per room?
Yes, please.
Okay. A couple will have 6.
That works.
Do you want me to stay in the main room or go?
Scribes, go ahead and let's enter in. What did you come up with of ideas to make their day?
This is Annette. I'm from group, I believe it was. And some of the things we came up with is taking coffee in the morning, addressing individuals with eye contact, and just being genuine when you're addressing them. Offering staff a break or help with work. Oh, something that really piqued my interest was doing Secret Santa during the year, not just on Christmas, Valentine celebrations, and decorating staff doors on their birthday.
Fantastic.
So those are a few.
Thanks, Annette. Yeah, there gets to be so many. Amari's listed some fantastic ones too here about making that phone call, smiling flowers, those kind of things. Room 10, Estefanita. She got kicked out of your room a little bit early, but boy, she did a great job of summarizing that idea of a good morning. greeting rather than we need to do this. Give a smile, receive a smile. Appreciation, genuinely listening. I'm just grabbing a couple of these. Well done, everyone. See, this is what happens when we get together. We have a sharing of energy, and it helps us to have some fantastic experiences going along as well. I see donuts and cookies and ice cream in there. Reinforcing skill sets. Yes, that idea of a positive affirmation. Remember, that works if it's something they do well, but we don't want to have that be done because we're just motivating. Yeah, just checking in. Someone just letting them know that you care about them, seeing what others really need. Fantastic. And I imagine Veronica will save the chat for this so that these are things that people can look at. And as people are looking at the recording, that works as well. So let's just do something fun. This is going to make everyone's day. Please do this. Go to reactions and choose one of those little icons that talks about your group. I'm going to do for my group. So I'm putting in a hands clap thing for mine. And go ahead and give your group some response. Mine didn't do it quite the way I thought it would. But anyway, sympathizing others, we got thumbs up, we got parties, we got lots of signs, and we got them in other places. Okay, folks, we're going to put the icing on our cake. I told you I just absolutely love that Make Their Day, because that made such a difference with my wife. You know, that day that Addie did that was the turning point, because Gayleen says, I just can't miss things like that. That was too special. And she started to push herself. She started to do a little bit of exercise. She started to prove to the doctors that, no, I can overcome this. I can get better. She had doctors actually say, you've got to get used to pain because you're going to have it the rest of your life. And she said, no, I can do this. And so this whole idea of making their day, that started it. And then she makes her sister's day every day. So I can tell you one time a year ago that my day was made. This kind of came up because it was a year ago. This is my son. I don't know how many of you have children, but this is the one that drove me crazy. This is the one who wouldn't come home when he was supposed to when he was in high school, who got married way too early, who became a father too early, got divorced too early. He had challenges. Later, he married a woman who had 5 children. So 5 of those children you see are my grandchildren. They are my step grandchildren, but they are mine and they're his children. A year ago, I got to hear Dr. Nathan Miles Jones as he crossed and he got his doctorate in nurse practice, doctor of nurse practice, I think is the way they say it. So he's a DNP. Anyway, there's the Make Your Day that really was powerful. Now we're going to jump into Choose Your Attitude, and then we'll have a little bit of time at the end for some questions if you've got some of those. But this one right here, this is kind of even though I'm showing it last, it's kind of entry level to the fish practices, because this is how this works. So be ready for a little video here.
You've always got an attitude. Could be a nasty attitude, a bad attitude, a cranky, but you've got an attitude. But the point here is that the attitude that you want to choose?
Right now, I don't know. Bubbles!
Oh, yeah.
Go to lunch!
You gonna be upset all day, or are you gonna be happy all day?
Choose your attitude means that, like, if you want to be good or bad, you could choose. Choose your attitude means if something happened at home, you shouldn't bring that attitude to school.
When you get up in the morning, you put your attitude on just like you put on your clothes.
Coming to school every day, you're tired, you didn't get any sleep, you don't want to be here. I mean, right then you got to choose your attitude. And if you're going to have a good day, it's pretty much based on that one decision.
Yeah, you can choose a bad attitude towards stuff, but that's usually not very fun.
If you're grumpy and upset and angry all the time, I don't know how many days you can make. Whereas if you are perky and happy and, you know, loving your job, then it makes everybody else's day because they could pick up on the vibes.
I was coming to school today and somebody cut me off in traffic, so I chose my attitude. You're not just a teacher, you're a counselor, you're a nurse, you're a referee. So you're constantly doing things that you wouldn't necessarily think that you'd be doing. And you have to move through them to get past them to actually get to the teaching.
It's not so easy to walk around in school smiling all the time when you know people staring at you and talking about you.
They made me feel sad, and it was their fault I was in a bad mood, or it was somebody else's fault I was feeling happy.
If somebody's making fun of you or doing something to you that really makes you mad, it's so hard to like walk with a smile on your face. And I mean, even though I try to, but it is hard to choose your attitude when people really tick you off.
So what's the deal? Somebody's stopping me from choosing my attitude, because if they weren't doing what they were doing, then I wouldn't be having the attitude that I have.
No one chooses your attitude for you. You choose your attitude.
I do have a bigger choice on whether or not I choose to feel happy or sad or crabby or anything.
If I'm having a really bad day, I just really try to be around people that I know that are always mostly positive.
Something may go wrong, but then you're like, well, I'm not going to let this hurt my day, so I'm just going to choose my attitude and feel better about myself.
You're not choosing your attitude forever. You're just choosing it for one day at a time.
They get to choose.
Huh?
They get to choose. They get to step back from a situation and say, I get to choose who I'm going to be today, how effective I'm going to be today, and how positive I'm going to be today. I get to choose. And I think they feel a lot better about that because it gives them some type of control.
What are some feelings you have this morning? We talked about all the different feelings. How are you feeling today? Daniel?
Oh, good.
Feel good today? That's great. Christian?
I'm feeling great a lot.
We had a little survey that they would fill out in the morning, and it was, how are you feeling? And there was a smiley face and a straight face and a sad face. And then they were able to answer the next question, which is, okay, yes, this is how you're feeling, but what kind of an attitude are you going to work towards today?
And you choose 7 words from either list.
I had given the kids an assignment, and they weren't very pleased with it because it was going to be more detailed than a lot of the things that we had done.
Brittany, what's a synonym?
And I had a little girl, Erica, and she was like, hey, choose your attitude.
Erica just said, well, you can either choose to have a good attitude about it or you can just be mad about it, which made everybody just think about that.
And I about fell over because, you know, up to that point, that's when I guess I really noticed that, okay, the kids had taken ownership in it, and it wasn't just, you know, things that we'd put up on the wall.
I wouldn't want a Mr. Rogers, but I probably want a Mr. Rogers more than I want, you know, some kind of grump.
One of my students may just be having a bad day, and because of that, things, you know, didn't go the way I would like, but tomorrow's a different day.
The worst thing I can do is take out my stress on somebody else. So that 45-minute drive home every night, is that's when I usually throw my luggage out on the highway on the way home.
In the course of the day, some things that's going to occur that are not good things, or things that I particularly like, but it's not going to stop me from having a good day.
If I'm having a bum day, I'll talk to, you know, one of my colleagues, and they'll let me know, well, you know, well, what about this day, or what about this good thing that happened? You know, they help me see the good things that happen throughout the day, even though I don't think it was a great day, but good things did happen throughout the day.
You know, it's just not that terrible. Let's think about how we can turn this thing around. What positive ways and what positive things can we do?
I really do think it's a conscious choice about what kind of teacher you want to be and what kind of school you want to have.
I'm going to have a good day. And I'm going to have a good day because I choose to have a good day.
Okay, you can go to recess now.
Thank you.
So just for a second, I wanted to make a comment on it. Gloria picked that up. You put your attitude on like your clothes. Yeah, make it adventure, like Bonnie's saying. So Dinesh is sitting there watching this, and she had a coworker bring her a donut. Isn't that great? Made her day right there. So that's kind of cool. So I want you to all think about, I'm gonna come off screen share for a second. Can you all think about back to that day? Remember that day, March of 2020? Do you remember that day? It was right around March 13th. Think about what that felt like that day. I remember for me, it was incredibly devastating. I had retired from my full-time job. I'd worked really hard. I'd built a clientele, and I had lined up 6 months on my calendar of presenting and sharing and going to all kinds of fun places. And within 24 hours, every event I had was gone. Poof, just like John saying, it was out of there. And one of the people who books me for many of my events, he calls us, Jalen, this is weird. If you want to keep working, you're going to have to go virtual. Now, I got to tell you, in that very first 30 seconds of hearing that, I was like this. It's like, are you kidding me? I've got to go virtual? That's horrible. I've never done virtual before. I don't know how that works. All that kind of, and it was so interesting. And you imagine if I'm being reactive, what happens? And I don't want to open that on any of you. But about the next day, I had this insight happen. And the insight was, hey, you know what? Stuff's happening to me, but I can be proactive. I have spent decades learning how to share content in a way that's helpful, and I've been pretty good at it. And people keep having me come back. Why can't I do that virtually? And I'm also pretty good with technology. Now, Monica just had to help me with stuff. She's better, by the way, at technology. She helped me with a couple things. But when I learned to do this, not this, life changed. Within 2 weeks, my schedule started to fill up again once I got certified to do all of the virtual things for the companies I do things for. And within a few months, I had a schedule every bit as busy. And now I do both. And you know what's kind of neat? I was just thinking today how wonderful it is that I get to work with you. And if it weren't for the virtual world, I would have never learned how to do that. It would probably have not happened. And we're able to do events and things in a much more inexpensive way. And so I get to meet more people than I would have ever been able to meet. And it becomes an incredibly powerful thing for us. So like Beverly and Bonnie are saying, count your blessings, not your worries, And when we act in that reactive way, something's going to happen, something's going to burst, and somebody else is then going to, it won't make their day, okay? It'll ruin their day, those other people that were around. So that concept is there, and I want to kind of push that with you a little bit, give you a little bit of an opportunity to think about it as we say to ourselves, yeah, but nobody had as hard a time as I have. I want you to ponder this. Do we have another reader, Veronica?
Yes, Ronald Reed.
Okay, Ronald.
Between stimulus and response, there is a space. And that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom.
Thank you. And thanks, Ron. So think about this, folks. If we think things are hard, Viktor Frankl, he was in a Nazi concentration camp, and it wasn't just torture. They were doing experiments on his body. But he chose in that space what his attitude would be. And his attitude was, they can do all kinds of stuff to me, but it's not going to cause me to lose who I am. My freedom and my growth lie within my choice. So no matter what life throws in your path, and there'll be tough things, you alone are responsible for how you respond to it. And this is a message, if we could help our students understand, think about the difference. I've had several, well, not just several, dozens and dozens of students over the year that when they figured this out, it changed everything. So let's talk about choose your attitude. What does it encompass? What is this about? Well, it's consciously choose how you show up. Now, folks, this right here, this picture, these two pictures, they happened on the same day, the same experience, okay? Kids who were within a month of age, but look at the difference in the way they responded to it. And who do you think had a better day? So let's do this. In the chat, go ahead, you choose first. Choose, what's your attitude right now? You go ahead and choose and pop it in the chat. We got grateful, excited, peaceful, open. I like that one. Optimistic. Okay. Humble, grateful. They're coming in. A lot of grateful, hopeful. Yes. Love the positive side here. Fantastic. Conscientious. Way to go, Phoebe. Okay. Encouraged and happy. I'm glad you feel encouraged, Lee. That's awesome. Aware. Thanks, John. Yeah, see that idea. Now we're going to twist this just a little. Remember, I'm going to talk about a different level and put a little twist. So this is another level. Now, do we have another reader? Because this is a fun one to read. Anybody ready?
No other volunteers for readers, but I can read for you.
Okay, here we go.
The concept of the least preferred coworker scale was developed by Fred Fiedler. The scale is used to identify if any individual's leadership style is relationship-oriented or task-oriented. It requires individuals to rate a person with whom they least prefer to work with using a range of 18 to 25 adjectives that could be positive or negative, along with ratings from 1 to 8.
So I always have fun when I introduce this, or people are going, ooh, you going to talk about that? I got somebody in my mind or whatever it might be. So here's what's so interesting. This research by Fred Fiedler was done. It's been done over many years with hundreds of thousands of people. And what he would do is he would give people, he'd tell people, think about that least preferred coworker. And now I want you to rate them on this scale. Circle the number that describes them. From 1 to 8, from open-minded to closed-minded, from kind to unkind, from moral to immoral, all of those different kinds of adjectives. And there were like 18 of them. And so you might think of a person, and then you may put these numbers about that person. In other words, you really think they're self-centered, closed-minded, and irrational, and dumb, just basically dumb. So think about that. Now, here's my question. Why do I care? Well, here's what's interesting about the Fred Fiedler study is that they went to find out people's leadership style, but what they found out when they correlated results and they went back and looked at things is this. It turns out that the way we perceive others is often the way others perceive us. Okay? Now I'm seeing some nods. I'm seeing some of you get, oh, man. That means that if I'm telling these horrible stories about my coworker in my mind, guess what? They're probably doing the same, because it's going to, it's like a chemical reaction. That's the way that works. And guess what? The opposite works. If we can twist that around, if we can change those stories we're telling, oh, you know what? Maybe they're late. God, maybe something happened at home. Maybe I can go talk to them. You know, there was years ago, it was so interesting when we actually take time to figure out why. I was coaching a baseball team. I coached tons of baseball and soccer and football and whatever with my kids growing up, over 70 youth sports teams. And I had a star pitcher on my team. And we came to a game and he just wasn't himself. He wasn't doing well. And I went over and I said to his dad, hey, what's going on? He said, Chase's dog died last night. His dog was the most important creature in his life, even more important than me, and he's just not himself. Hey, you know what? Me understanding that, I was able to walk out on the mound and talk to Chase, say, hey, I know you're going through a hard time. If you don't want to pitch, you don't have to. And he looked at me and he sighed. He says, you know what? I owe it to my team and I owe it to my dog. I'm going to do it. It's kind of a cool thing. So choose your attitude. Here we go. Become aware. Okay, what is my attitude? What does it look like when people look at me? Sometimes we need to look in the mirror more. I've been told sometimes you look like you got a frown on your face. I'm like, ooh, really? Wow, these things come out. Yeah, and John's saying, is perception reality, reality or perception? Well, it might be. So you want to make a conscious choice and then recognize that impact and then live in alignment with those intentions that you have. Okay, so there's an awesome book. It's called Micro Resilience. And I think this may have some utility with this whole idea of working with people who are frustrated, and we have many, and that's part of our mental health challenge. Bonnie St. John wrote the book. And so if you'd all do this, if you've got a piece of paper somewhere, would you write on that piece of paper some obstacle that seems to be incredibly difficult to overcome? So it might be, I don't have time to exercise. That could be what's written on that paper. So go ahead and write something down on a paper. Go ahead and do that. Any kind of paper, it doesn't have to be fancy, just some kind of a paper that you can turn over here in just a second. Write down an obstacle. I don't have enough time in the week to get things done. I don't have a healthy meal in the fridge. Whatever that might be. Give you about 10 more seconds. Now, as you finish that up, I want you to turn the paper over, and whatever you wrote on the left, try to write the exact opposite on the right. So if you put, I don't have time for exercise, turn it over and say, I have time to exercise. Whatever that was you put on the left, put the opposite on the other side. So here's what Bonnie found out. And she's tested this with just thousands and thousands of people. She's found that if we can flip the card and focus instead on the possibility rather than the obstacle. So what is the possibility? We are significantly more likely to achieve it. She talked about one incredible CEO of a large organization just said, Bonnie, I do not have time to exercise. She had her do this exercise, turn it over, and this lady said, 2 weeks later, calls Bonnie and says, holy cow. Once I said I have time to exercise, I found, now it might be 5 minutes, might be 8 minutes. But see, that's what clicked in her mind is, well, I don't have time to put an hour of yoga in, but man, I can stretch for 5 minutes. Whatever it might be, we can put something down that is possible. So all these challenges, these things that I had early, and I'll try to go back to that at the very end that we had on our mind, all of those things, we have solutions for, some possibilities as we get going. So here's something really quite interesting. And there's too many words on these pages, so I'll kind of just glance through those. But isn't this interesting that despite war and COVID, happiness is on the rise worldwide? Isn't that kind of fun to hear that? Did you know, this is a choose your attitude concept, did you know that despite the pandemic and the threat of war in Europe, and now it's a real war in Europe, this was taken from February, the World Happiness Report found a silver lining that during the pandemic, there has led to more social support and benevolence throughout the world. This is what's fun for me. For the 10th year in a row, the global survey examined over 9 million people, 150 countries, and the findings show that people around the globe are rallying together during this unprecedented time of need. I think that's pretty awesome. And that's why you're here today. To me, you're investing in yourself so that then you could be better for others. You're increasing your capacity. So COVID-19, that's the biggest health crisis we've seen in my life. Okay, and I've been around a long time. Now that we got more than 2 years of evidence, we can assess that not just the importance of benevolence and trust, but to see how they have contributed to well-being. And so I'm just going to pick this out. I've got it up for you, but I want to just pick out this whole idea of helping strangers, volunteering, and donating. We're strongly up in every part of the world. Isn't that cool? Now, I want to give you a little twist, another little twist. Nordic countries might not get a lot of publicity, but as incredibly fun tourist destinations. But don't tell that to people living in Finland. The nation ranks as the happiest place on earth for the 5th year in a row. And overall, on a scale of 0 to 10, the average life evaluation score in Finland was 7.8, significantly higher than others. Now, I lived there for a couple of years as a young man. It's true. So I'm going to go kind of fast here. This is Christine Parath. I'm going to quickly show things up on the board that she says we can actually do. So people say, we talked a lot about how to be, but these are things to do that help you change the way you choose your attitude. Here's some things. Acknowledging others. And this kind of goes along with the awesome list you made. Sharing credit, listening attentively, humbly asking questions, thanking people, smiling. And Christine Parath says, we'll be more productive, creative, helpful, happy, and healthy in every interaction. Think, who do you want to be? Can I be there? Can I make their day? Can I play? Can I choose my attitude? So part of choosing your attitude is choosing the appropriate attitude. There's a lot of things in this world I'm not good at. Something I'm really quite proficient at is riding ATVs, and I've ridden in the mountains of lots of places. You can see that trail sign says that's the most difficult trail. And I have been in some pretty phenomenal places. Well, back in November 29th of 2021, something wonderful happened. It was a nice enough day that we could ride ATVs during what we consider the winter, okay? And we rode all day long in an amazing place about 3 hours from my home. And on the way home, I had a horrible thing happen. My trailer was overloaded. It cut up this tire and we had to replace it. Now I want you to notice, we're playing, we're having fun as we had to take the ATVs off. We had to replace things and we got ourselves home safe. But you know what? I did not have an attitude of trust toward my trailer. And I was really concerned. And so the very next day, I called down to the big old tires and I said, I need new springs. I need new wheels. I need new tires. I want you to make my trailer be something I can trust. So I now have a trusting attitude toward my trailer. In fact, about 3 weeks ago, I pulled it for 6 hours clear over to Silverton, Colorado with 3 heavy ATVs. And then for most part of a week, we rode in the high mountains there by Silverton, and I trusted my trailer. Okay, so one of the last things on choose your attitude, people just told me I need to put this in there. You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to, folks. So be prepared for that. So here we go. We got 4 fish practices. Okay. Would you please, and this is where we'll put, Monica, that other link in the chat. Would you put in the chat? Go ahead and follow this poll, and we'll see if we can share that. See what you're thinking. What are your favorite fish practices? Kind of fun, folks. Doing a good job. We'll give it just a little bit longer. And then I'm going to go back to our word cloud and be ready to ask. We'll have just a few minutes at the end if you want to ask some questions. Okay, so we're seeing all of them are getting some, and I hope we can see a couple of people say plays their favorite. Choose your attitude's pretty big, folks. That is that entry level condition. We can see be there, make their day, or kind of evening things out. Nice job. I want to see if this works for me to bounce back to the other one. Okay, just one second. Let's see if I can make that work. And all right, haha, it did work. Here's where we started today. We had mental health, family, learning, morale, stress, school, physical well-being, compassion, fatigue, all kinds of things here. We had a lot of stuff going on, a lot of stuff on your mind. And as we've worked together to figure out a little bit of that, I hope what you've done is maybe identify what would work for you. Okay. Yeah. And Jennifer's making a good point. All of those the order might fluctuate day to day. Yeah. Some days the most important thing for me is just simply to be there for somebody else. Other times is there somebody who I need to make their day? I got to say almost every day you got to have some play, you got to have some fun, but there's some days where that's not appropriate. And then choosing that appropriate attitude is critical as well. So as we are finishing up today, I'm going to flash something up here. Be ready to ask some questions, and I'll kind of have my last little bit that I share with you. Okay. So I have my email address up there, and be ready if you've got questions. We either put them in the chat, or I promise you about 5 minutes that we can talk at the end. You could probably figure out my email address. The SPED, I was special ed director for a long time. That's what the SPED's for. So you guys will recognize that. I told you about the ATV. So that leaves a word. Folks, that's this Finnish word. And that Finnish word is something that we need to share with all of our students, all of our colleagues. It is sisu. Sisu doesn't have a direct translation in English, but it means grit, resilience, determination, stick-to-itiveness. And this is something that we're seeing lacking in many of our students who are challenged with their social emotional learning, is this idea of grit, this idea of sisu. Now, the Finnish people have sisu. They are tough. And I have an example to share with you about how they are so tough. They were under the thumb, you might say, of two other countries, Sweden and Russia, for thousands of years. They would never had their own country. They were always underneath these other countries. But they still maintain their own culture. They still maintain their own language, which, by the way, is very different than any of the Scandinavian languages or Russian. And in 1917, they finally became a sovereign nation. And as I said, the happiest in the world. Well, in 1939, something happened that was possibly incredibly devastating for the Finns. The Russians decided they wanted to take back their country. It's a little bit like what we're seeing going on with Ukraine right now. And the Russians sent more soldiers than there were Finnish people to take back Finland and put them under their rule. And the Finns said no. And the Finns had their white ski suits, and they had their cross-country skis, and they had their reindeer to pull them, and they had their rifles. And for the entire incredibly cold winter of 1939, the Finns demonstrated their sisu, and they held off the Russians. They were able to maintain their status as a sovereign nation, and they're strong in many, many ways. Even though they only have about 5 million people, they are an incredibly strong 5 million people. So as I finish today, I want to give you that word, sisu. I want you to think about it. I want you to think about who needs it. How can you share it with them? How can you develop it with them, along with them? Thank you so much for being here.